Now you're looking to get an S2000, not a bad choice at all. AP1, AP2, it's about preference. This video isn't about that. It's actually designed to help you ask the right questions when you go look at a car. This video will break down a year's worth of research, a year's worth of nerding out on the computer, utilizing S2KI, becoming a member, and also bugging the crap out of the guy who makes a YouTube channel DIY Guys. He makes videos that actually helps you repair your S2000, and you're probably thinking, well, thanks for this information. But in reality, the things that I'm about to point out, it applies to majority of S2000s. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that they say that Honda's reliable, but this car has multiple issues that most S2000s go through. And it takes a lot of time, it takes some headache, and it takes quite a bit of money to fix them. So before you go out thinking that S2000 is 100% reliable, just Google all the issues that's wrong with these cars and realize, like, holy moly. And what I'm here to do is help you avoid a lot of those costs and avoid doing the mistakes that I made by asking the right questions. Now let's go into it. So you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna come over here, check the tires. Oh, that has a lot of thread. All right, moving on to the next thing. Incorrect. What you wanna do is you wanna look at the thread, but you also wanna look at the manufacturer date. If you see right here, it says 23/16. That's the 23rd week of 2016. And if you don't look at that, you could find a lot of cars, especially older cars like this, where the owner probably babied it and they just didn't replace the tires. And you're about to buy it and it has plenty of thread, but the tires are 10 years old. It's according to actually, due to like the whole legal things, there's not like a set value, but all the manufacturers agree that over 6 years it's bad. And I agree with them, because after a while you'll see a lot of these cars with 8-year tires, 10-year car tires. And if you're only looking at the thread, it's going to bite you later, and safety is nothing to play with. All right, this is something that's going to bring big value to this video. A lot of people don't know this, but the windshield on the S2000 is a humongous point that you need to look at. These cars sit low, and over time they get little craters, little divots, and they get pitted. And what happens if you're not looking at it up close and you're not inspecting it, you're going to drive home with your new S2000 and it's actually going to be pitted. And when you hit the sunlight, you're going to see as if it was sandblasted. Now that was wrong with mine. I had it replaced. Luckily, my insurance company approved an OEM glass, but it's something that I didn't even notice, and it's one of the hardest things to look at. But please look at your windshields before you buy an S2000, and you will thank me for that. The S2000 tops are notorious for having tears. Some are small, some are big. Now when you go look at one, don't overlook the small ones. As you could tell, here's one that's pretty noticeable. But if you look right here, this one, I'm sure you could catch it if you're looking real closely, but if you overlook that, this small one will turn into this and these. And tears on S2000 tops are so common that you're gonna hear people selling, you're gonna see cars that are being sold with new tops, or they tell you that they're torn and that they're small, but you should really take in consideration that if the top is torn, you're gonna have to pay a pretty decent amount of price to have it replaced. Another thing about the top is that if it has been replaced, sometimes the people who replaced them didn't do them properly. And what will happen is, even though you have a new top, it will prematurely fail. So you want to make sure that you ask them where the top was installed, and you want to make sure that it was at a reputable place. And if you're kind of hesitant about that, take it to a reputable place and have it inspected, because what happens is that with a new top, it will prematurely fail right away, because as you see mine was a new top, but it was kind of installed where it added pressure in certain areas. You can see that the tears are right at the points where it opens and closes. And that ultimately happened because somebody installed this top that they didn't know what to do about it. They didn't know how to properly install it. All right, one thing that a lot of people don't know about, unless you really dig into amazing forums like S2KI, and I will plug that in because those guys are awesome, is the rear bumper gap. Now this is really well known around cars, and what happened is that when owners first bought these cars new, they would go up and tell Honda, I want this fixed. But a lot of owners overlooked this, and as you could tell, mine is not very big. Some people had a very noticeable gap. Mine didn't get fixed, but you'll see this, and if you have a car that's fixed already, that's great. If it's small like mine, that's fine. But if you see it's big, it's something you might want to get addressed, but look at that. right, next thing we're talking about is headlights. When I got this car, they were hazed out, and you're gonna expect that, especially with these vehicles getting older. One thing you wanna really look into is making sure that if the headlight is completely hazed out, have that factored into the price, because you're gonna have to have that fixed. Now, I fixed mine with a $20 3M kit, and it came out really well, and I also bought an additional $10 clear coat for after the restoration to prevent the UV light from getting it back to the way it was. But highly recommend you looking at that. Don't overlook that in the midst of your excitement of trying to purchase a car or purchase an S2000. One of the most important things you want to look at when buying an S2000 is if the valve adjustment has done. This pertains to the AP1 and the AP2, and it consists of removing this valve cover and going in there and adjusting the valves. If you don't do this, it can affect the engine. Particularly the exhaust valves are usually really tight. If you want to look more information, just type in S2000 valve adjustment and you'll see how important it is. And if the person who's selling the car doesn't have receipts or doesn't have records to do it, you're gonna have to end up doing it because you're gonna want that peace of mind. So it's one of those things you want to factor in big time. It is a big time thing with the S2000. Now guys, a lot of these things that I'm talking about, they're not recommendations. I would say that a huge majority of S2000 owners have this issue. You're gonna have to replace this clutch master cylinder most of the time. Now, I was noticing that the clutch was engaging really well, and I looked at this, it was dirty, and when I looked inside where the clutch mechanism goes in there, it was leaking, and this had to be replaced. When I looked online, I found out that everyone is replacing them, so you're gonna have to consider that. This was about 150 bucks as OEM, and it was an easy install for someone who knows how to do, you know, basic mechanics. But if you're not into that thing, it's going to run you a pretty penny. On top of that, you're going to have to check the fluid more frequently than regular cars. This isn't just fill up and leave alone. You actually, and they actually recommend you look at it quite often when you do an oil change. That's how, unfortunately, the design of these clutch master cylinders weren't the best. They say that the seal in the cabin is actually a little bit bad and allows the dirt to get in there, which contaminates the fluid. Look into that. The brake master cylinder is a big deal as well. Now, I haven't seen a lot of issues with these. I don't have a lot of issues, but the fluid, one thing I noticed is that I've been having some brake caliper seizing, and I replaced the fluid and bled the brakes, and that fixed the issue for the most part. Now, checking the brake fluid is going to be a big deal, but with this particular application, again, if you verify what I'm telling you, it's a pretty common issue with the brake seizing up and with you having to flush and bleed these brakes, and it's an important thing to do. What I'm pointing to is the coil pack, but what I'm really referencing to is the spark plug. Now, Honda, in their manual, it states that they're a 100,000 mile spark plug, but you want to check these every now and then because an owner could have replaced them prematurely, or if you're having any symptoms with the car, or if you bought, you know, if you're just wanting to do a tune-up, just understand that these spark plugs are designed to last that long. And if you do look at them, you know, they're pretty easy to get to, but that's one of the things you're gonna have to factor in, especially if you get this car and you want to go back and feel comfortable with what's actually done to the car. In the midst of trying to do all your due diligence, you want to look at the small things. And when I bought my S2000, I didn't look at the serpentine/accessory belt, and that bit me in the butt later. Now, this belt right here, you're going to want to look at the condition. You're going to want to see it's frayed, if it looks old, if it, you know, you're going to want to look if it's been replaced recently, and that's something you want to take into consideration because you will have to replace it. And at the end of the day, it was pretty easy to replace it. It was about $40. I got the Gates belt, and it was a good deal, but make sure you look at that. And if it is bad, factor that into your negotiations. Okay, one thing that's kind of like a hint when you're looking at a car to kind of see where the owner's mentality is. If you look down, if the oil filter is blue and you can kind of tell if it's a Honda filter, that kind of gives you a good feeling because that means that they're using OEM parts. And if you look online, everybody recommends the Honda oil filter. And you know, if you see that, that's a good indicator. So just a quick tip there. Now, why is this floor mat just sitting out here? Well, if you look at your S2000 and floor mats are bad and you're thinking you could just replace them really quickly and cheaply, that's wrong. As a matter of fact, that these floor mats, to buy them new, they're pretty expensive, ranging from $150 to over $200, depending on the color you want. So take that in consideration. If you see the floor mats and you're like, oh, that's not a big deal, later on, if you want to replace them, that's going to be a big factor. It's going to hit your wallet. Okay, so this is one of the sore points for me, and luckily I have some Honda S2000 CR seats on their way, which should really complement the car. But when I got the car, there was a small tear in the seat, and I thought, okay, well, you know, I'll just find a way how to get this fixed, or I think I'm okay with the small tear. Well, fast forward a year later, I didn't do anything crazy. I wasn't wearing like a knight's armor suit. I was just doing my normal thing, and all of a sudden, fast forward a year later, and this is how it looks. Now, before you think I'm crazy, and I'm even so afraid that I'm gonna cover it up, because that's how I am, let me tell you what, I did a lot of research to the point that again, a little nerdy here. So if you look at pictures, if you type in Google Acura TL seats, you know, in the 2000s, 5s and 6, and you type in S2000 torn seats, you will see a behemoth amount of torn seats and damaged seats. S2000 seats are just, in my opinion, crap. And a lot of people are like, my seat's okay. Well, the thing about it is, for some reason, there's an allotted amount of materials that came out there that just are worthless. And a lot of the owners ended up with bad seats. If you see a seat and you're about to buy a car and you see a few tears, you're thinking it's not a big deal, this is what the result is, guaranteed. So you need to take that in consideration. And if you want to be like, oh, I can replace the seats, seats are expensive. To have these repaired, I had 3 quotes, and for them to redo everything, it was over $1,000 easily per seat. And that is a real quote. And that's from 3 places. I had them compete against each other. And an aftermarket seat's going to run you about the same amount, because the seat plus the rails, it's going to be a good cost. So if you're looking at a car, please take the seats into consideration. If they're damaged, factor it in. And if they don't want to work with you, I recommend walking away, because it does something you deal with every day, and it's a sore point for me, and now I'm having to pay the price for it. All right, we're going to talk about re-greasing the shifter and why you need to think about that when you're buying a car. Now, when you're looking to buy a S2000, you want to ask the owner if they re-grease the shifter. The reason why is that these cars are getting older and that the grease is it's just drying out. And it's an important thing to do, because it doesn't have a major impact on your shifting, but it actually does have a significant amount of impact where you could actually tell the difference. I re-greased mine. You have to use the Honda Grease, and it's a pretty easy thing to do, but it's something that if it's already done, you don't have to worry about. But it's something that if you buy the car and it's not done, you're gonna end up doing it. And that's just more time and more money that you're gonna have to spend. Something that you wanna ask about. Okay, now, if you run into a car with the front lip, you're going to be very thankful that the owner did that, and consider that as a positive in the car. And if you're looking at cars, make sure that they have them. Now, this is a replica lip. A lot of people go farther and they have them painted and they get the CR lip, and this is a really great thing. But one thing you want to look into when you have these lips is that they have a gasket that comes around, and I had to purchase this gasket, and this gasket actually really helps the lip sit against it. It's a really good thing. And if you're looking at purchasing the car and they have a lip, make sure that the gasket's there. And if they do have the gasket and the lip, you just made out, and that's fantastic. And it's one of those mods that you're going to want to have in your S2000. So if you could buy it already done, more power to you, and most likely you'll get it discounted, because you don't get a lot of money back for your mods. One thing that if your new S2000 comes with it, you're gonna be very happy, and consider it as a positive thing. As you see, I have the amber lights. A lot of people switching to the clear, and they're considered like the S2000, the CR ones, the S2000 CR ones. If you have those already, consider that a pro, and that you got lucky. So you're gonna want to change those out sooner or later, like I am. These are one of the things that if your car comes with it, it's going to be a great thing, and that's an aftermarket intake. Now, mine didn't come with it, so I bought it, and I'm actually happy. I'm happy with noise. You know, I know that a lot of people talk about the heat sink, that, you know, there's controversy about the lower end power, especially if you're idling and you're sucking in hot air, but I love it. Now, if you go buy a car and they have an aftermarket intake, that's great. But if they have an aftermarket intake and the original equipment that they took off, that's even better. Consider that a pro. If they don't have the original equipment on it, I would say that it depends on the condition of the filter, and if you really are planning to keep it, I would actually negotiate with that. But that's one of those things that you're going to want to take into consideration. And you're always going to want to ask if they added a part, if they have the original equipment with it. I want to give special thanks to everyone for helping me with this video. I want to thank my wife for making the videos. I want to thank S2KI for providing me the resource to address the issues with my S2000 and being able to tell you how I did it and things to look out for. And that's a collaboration of S2000 owners getting together and helping each other out. And I also want to thank the YouTube channel DIY Guys. He's a really awesome guy. Due to the reason why these cars have a lot of issues, this guy has made a channel just to address how to fix them. He gives you tutorials, and it's a great channel. I highly recommend you check it out. And thank you for looking, and please subscribe. It helps out. I'm willing to make more videos. I'm not the best, but I want to help. I want to give value. I want to be able to help you save money and know how to make better decisions when, like in this particular situation with the S2000. Thank you.